what kind of full-grown adult deliberately, not on accident, deliberately eats sushi?
Never far from controversy, Andrew Tate is a former world champion kickboxer. But how he keeps in shape these days may not be everyone's ideal diet. Here are the top 10 untold truths of Andrew Tate's food habits. When he was poor.
We invented a dish that was so bland, we called it flavor.
When Andrew Tate was starting out, he was completely broke. Money was very tight, so the grocery bill had to stay quite low. When people are struggling with funds, they have to prioritize where they're going to spend the money they do have. Andrew Tate says that when he was broke and he was training for his future kickboxing career, he invented a bland dish in order to sustain himself. He gave that invented dish a name. He called it flavor. The flavor dish was made from the following ingredients: white rice, frozen peas, some kidney beans, and some minced beef. He would mix all of those ingredients together, and this is what he would eat on a daily basis.
But it was extremely bland.
Andrew Tate says that he used to cook large amounts of this recipe twice a week, and each batch he would make would carry him through the next few days. Sometimes, if he was lucky and had a few extra bucks, he would indulge himself and purchase a jar of hot sauce, and then he would add it to his flavor dish to, well, give it more flavor. He also notes that kidney beans have more protein in them than ground beef. For 3 full years, Tate managed to survive on the flavor dish. He will bet you $50,000.
Sometimes I put up pictures on Instagram, I look like I'm in amazing shape.
In a vlog with Mike Thurston, Andrew Tate says that he only eats 1 meal a day. He says that his diet is trash, and he says that he drinks a lot. He says he'll make a bet with anyone for $50,000 about whether or not he takes anything extra to stay in the shape he's in today. He says he takes nothing. He doesn't take any injections, he doesn't take any steroids, and that he loves junk food.
I only eat once a day.
He also says that he drinks scotch and that he's not on any supplementary powders either. Andrew Tate does say that he trains every day. And as far as that $50,000 bet he's willing to make with anyone who's willing to do so, he says they can take him to any doctor who can do any test on him to see if, in fact, he is telling the truth. Only Brokies talk about great meals they ate.
I walk in the restaurant, give me your most expensive steak.
Andrew Tate says that to him, food is boring. He says that he could eat whatever he wants to eat, wherever he wants to eat, whenever he wants to eat, because money is not an issue for him anymore. He says now he's extremely rich and can buy whatever he wishes. Therefore, food is just not all that exciting to him. Eating great food is no big deal to Tate anymore. Tate says that if you hear a person talking about how great a meal someone had at a great restaurant somewhere, or about how delicious a particular item was that they ate, or how special the food was, it's proof that the person talking about the special meal is a Brokie.
What?
He says that if a person talks about a meal in that way, it's because the meal made an impression on them, because the person can't afford to eat that kind of meal all the time. If the person is talking about how great the meal was, it's because that meal was a once-in-a-while meal, a one-time costly indulgence, a birthday meal, or a special occasion meal. Perhaps a friend with some money took the person out, or a family member treated them. Otherwise, he says, they would not be talking about it. It would be no big deal to them. If they had the money and they can afford to eat that kind of delicious meal all the time, then they wouldn't be going around talking about how amazing the meal was. They would just expect that kind of meal all the time. Nothing to write home about. I wonder what Gordon Ramsay would think about this. Earn your meal.
I think that breakfast is the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity.
In one online video, Andrew Tate says that you shouldn't eat breakfast. According to him, you shouldn't wake up and then immediately stuff your face before you've even done anything to start your day. He says that you should stay hungry for a long, long time. Andrew Tate says that having breakfast immediately upon waking is something undeserved.
I think you should wake up and you should stay hungry.
So, according to Tate, until you've actually done something productive that day, like made some money or gone to the gym, breakfast is out. Eating before you've done anything? Andrew Tate just doesn't get it. He says he will often fast in the morning, and his first meal of the day will not be a typical breakfast. He will always wait a while before having that well-earned first meal. Specific tastes.
People say to me, wow, what's your diet? What's your meal prep? I'm like, bro, meal prep, KFC.
Andrew Tate says that the jerk chicken you order from a small restaurant down the street could be better than food from a Michelin star restaurant. There's no need to stand on ceremony when it comes to tasty choices. If the food is good to you, it should be considered good food no matter who else has deemed it so. Tate is very particular about what he will do and what he won't do when it comes to his meals. He says he will not cut broccoli up to put in a container dinner to eat later in order to build up his biceps. He just won't. Andrew Tate does love fried chicken, though.
I used to scavenge chicken from KFC.
Yes, breaded and fried chicken. True, there are carbs in the breading of the fried chicken, and maybe those are the only carbs he's eating on the days he indulges in this fried delicacy. Fried chicken is a completely balanced meal of protein and carbs and fats. Andrew also says that there's no power in eating sushi. He says that sushi will just not offer him the fuel he needs for the activities he wants to carry out during his days. Lunch bill? No problem.
Ha 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 ha. I'll take the tomahawk, please.
Andrew Tate says that he goes out to fancy restaurants all the time, and he asks the waitstaff to bring him the most expensive steak the restaurant has on the menu. He says he always does this. Every day he does this. He says that the tomahawk steak is usually the most expensive one. Sometimes the servers give him a few choices, but he says he doesn't want them to offer him anything.
Go back inside before you get hurt.
He says he just needs them to bring him what he asked for, the most expensive steak on the menu. He doesn't care to know which cut of meat it is or what they're going to be bringing him, as long as it's the most expensive one at the restaurant. He says that he'll easily spend $400 on a steak every day of the week. When he goes out with a friend for lunch or dinner, they'll each order the $400 steak dish. They'll then order a whole bunch of side dishes, no matter what side dishes are available at the restaurant. Andrew Tate says he'll usually only take a bite or two of each of the side dishes, and will usually leave most of the sides uneaten. Some of the side dishes are carbs, and his carb consumption is very low. Tate says that this is usually his lunch or dinner bill every day, and that the cost of food means nothing to him. He says if you're rich, then food is too cheap to mean anything. Everything else is way more expensive. And when you're rich, you're spending money on cars and houses and boats. So comparatively speaking, food is the lowest expense. Simply ketosis.
When you're eating only meat, you don't actually need that much food.
Andrew Tate says that he eats mostly meat and fat, and that he's eating the souls of dead animals. He usually eats 85% meat and 15% fat, and he calls his food plan the carnivore diet. He claims to eat approximately just over 2,200 calories a day. His motto is that he's dieting without even trying. He'll usually eat 236 grams of protein and 6 grams of carbs. The rest of his food is fat, approximately 138 grams of it. He eats super high fat, high protein, and low carb meals. The foods he'll eat are lamb, salmon, beef jerky, eggs, ribeye steaks, and ground beef, with that magical ratio of 85% lean to 15% fat. Tate says that when you start eating like he does, following the carnivore diet, at first you will immediately start losing body fat.
You're dieting without trying.
And he admits you'll definitely be hungry, because your body will be craving what it's used to getting. Your body will be hungry for carbs. But if you keep following the carnivore diet, eventually you'll get past the hunger part of it. Your body will go into a ketosis state when beginning this type of diet. It occurs when your body starts using fat as its main fuel source, because of its limited access to glucose or blood sugar. This is typically caused by starvation, fasting, or following a very low-carb diet. Normally, most cells in the body prefer to use blood sugar, called glucose, for energy. But during ketosis, when your body doesn't have enough glucose to power these cells, levels of the hormone insulin decrease, causing fatty acids to be released from stored body fat. Many of these fatty acids are transported to the liver, where they're oxidized and turned into ketones, also called ketone bodies. These are then used as an alternative energy source throughout the body. Unlike fatty acids, ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier and provide energy for your brain in the absence of glucose. Eventually, as you're eating more fat, your body will adjust. You'll be eating less overall, and you'll have more energy. Bah humbug.
It's the Swedish term for beef that is roasted.
Andrew Tate was hearing people talking about how he had to try roast with Yorkshire pudding. He heard it over and over again from different people, so he finally caved and decided to try it. He says that the Yorkshire pudding was like dry, stale bread. He didn't understand what all the hype was about, and said that he was disappointed in the Yorkshire pudding. He says it wasn't even a pudding. Tate also says that most athletes eat meat.
I eat meat. Lots of people eat meat.
There may be the odd exception, but the exception doesn't prove the rule. He says that meat is power and that vegetarians can't punch. Less is more.
85 to 90% of what you eat has to be meat.
Andrew Tate says that sometimes he starts his day with a gin and tonic. He'll mix diet tonic water with ice and gin. He says that when he started the carnivore diet, his six-pack came out, and says you don't need food to make that happen. His food intake, which he considers dieting without even trying, doesn't include breakfast or snacks. He only eats lunch and dinner. He therefore eats less, and yet he still has more energy. He's not tired or lethargic because he's not consuming carbs. He also says that he's not depressed or angry, and that he doesn't get brain fog,
I'm the final boss in the simulation.
as those are a product of having eaten carbs. Once carbs were removed from his diet, for the most part, those conditions were gone. Tate says that the less carbs you have, the better. Fat has a lot of vitamins in it, and he says he has 100% fatty steaks for his meals with a little salad, maybe. With this particular diet, you replace the carbs you're not going to eat with fat. Tate says that he spends 1 to 2 hours a day playing chess as well. When he used to eat carbs, he kept losing the chess games. His brain was just not focusing. But once he got rid of the carbs, he says he was able to think clearer and his brain was no longer foggy. Opinions.
Let me ask you a question. Do you eat salt and pepper, or do you only eat salt?
Never too far from controversial statements, Andrew Tate says pacifists and vegetarians are full of it. He says he has an anti-vegetarian policy and rejects anything vegetarian. He says that it's simply not a reality. He talks about this while eating some Pringles from a can in a video where he talks about vegetarianism. He says that vegans don't understand how the world works and says that something always has to die for something else to stay alive. He claims that if someone says humans should be vegetarians, it's like they're saying, I don't believe in gravity.
You need to at least accept you do not live in the real world.
He says that people who believe in vegetarianism throw the concept away of how the universe functions and tells anyone who will listen to forget about being vegetarian. He says that the vegetarian community are trying to control you and that vegetarianism just weakens you. He mentions that cows do destroy the grass, but something has to be destroyed for something else to live. He says that vegetarians are rejecting real-world views and that eating meat is the nature of the food chain. Well, Andrew Tate did once say that the souls of dead animals power me. Like we said, he's never too far from controversy. We've got a bunch of other videos for you to check out, so go ahead, take your pick and tap or click.